What is the opposite of madness? Is it order? Is it logic? Or is it merely a different kind of cage, one with gilded bars and perfectly measured corners? We mortals strive for control, for a world that bends to our will, where every stone is laid with purpose, and every day follows the sun's predictable path. We build cities of flawless logic, monuments to our own reason, believing that in perfection we find safety. But what happens when a God who despises reason takes notice? A God who sees our perfect world not as an achievement, but as a pristine canvas, begging for a splash of screaming, chaotic color. This is not a tale of heroes, nor is it a simple chronicle of destruction. It is a story of deconstruction. It is the memory of a place that erased itself, a city that became a punchline in a cosmic joke told only once. It is the story of Velyn Harbor, a testament to the idea that the most beautiful structures cast the darkest shadows, and within those shadows, a new form of divinity was learning the artistry of breaking things. Stay with us as we descend into the elegant madness of a prince of chaos in his prime. This is the story of the first scream, the one that echoed long after the sound had faded. And if you enjoy plumbing the depths of Tamriel's darkest lore, consider subscribing and let us know in the comments, what is the most maddening promise a god could make? In the early days of the First Era, before the name Sheogorath was a whispered curse in every corner of Tamriel, there stood a city that prided itself on silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of flawless function. Velyn Harbor, nestled on the coast of Valenwood, was an Ultima dream imposed upon the green. Its architect and high artisan, a stern elf named Relyan, had designed it as a rebuke to the chaos of nature. Every cobblestone was cut to the same precise dimension. Every building's height was a perfect golden ratio of its width. The Bosma traders who lived there learned to curb their wild impulses, and the Ultima artisans who flocked to Relyan's vision worked in quiet, meditative reverence of their craft. There were no loud arguments in the market, no children crying in the streets. There was only the gentle hum of commerce, the soft scraping of a chisel on stone, and the quiet dignity of absolute, unyielding order. Relyan would walk his city at dawn and dusk, his silver robes immaculate, his gaze sweeping across the pristine architecture. He saw no beauty in the gnarled chaos of the Valenwood trees that bordered his perfect city. He saw only imperfection, a problem to be contained. His city was his soul made manifest, a place where every variable was controlled, every outcome predicted. It was a gilded cage, and its inhabitants had forgotten they were birds. Into this sanctuary of serenity walked a man. He was a beggar, perhaps, judging by his simple, patched clothes, or a pilgrim given his weathered staff of unassuming oak. He did not speak. He did not ask for coin. He did not even seem to have a destination. He simply was. He would stand in the Grand Plaza for hours, watching the silent, efficient dance of the merchants. He would sit by the harbor, his gaze fixed not on the elegant ships, but on the chaotic, unpredictable patterns of the waves. The city's guards, conditioned to react only to overt disruption, ignored him. He was a silent anomaly, a piece that did not fit, but one that made no noise. Relyan, in his high tower, noted the stranger's presence with a flicker of annoyance. An unsolved equation, an unclassified specimen. He dismissed it. It was, after all, just one man, and in a city of perfect order, one man could do nothing. The first crack in the mirror of Velyn Harbor was not a crack at all. It was a masterpiece. Lyran, the city's most celebrated woodcarver, renowned for his serene sculptures of Oriel, unveiled his latest work for the city's mid-year festival. The crowd gathered in the plaza, expecting another image of divine tranquility. Instead, they saw a face carved from rare white birchwood. It was a face of exquisite, agonizing beauty, but its mouth was open in a silent, perfect scream. The grain of the wood twisted around the eyes, forming what looked like genuine tears. The crowd was not horrified. They were confused. It was technically flawless, a work of impossible skill. But its subject was wrong. It was an intrusion of raw, untamed emotion into their placid world. When questioned, Lyran could not explain it. He said he had intended to carve a smiling acolyte, but his hands had simply disobeyed. Relyan ordered the sculpture removed and burned, his jaw tight with fury. It was an error, a single freakish miscalculation. Days later, another anomaly. The Master Weaver, a woman whose tapestries depicted the orderly progression of the seasons with mathematical precision, was found weeping before her loom. Her latest work, meant to show the golden warmth of summer, instead depicted a sky of bleeding crimson with suns that looked like weeping eyes. The threads were not dyed, they simply were that color, a hue she had never seen. The pattern was a chaotic mess of misery, yet woven with a skill that surpassed anything she had done before. Panic, cold and quiet, began to seep into the city's foundations. These were not acts of vandalism, they were acts of spontaneous, inexplicable creation. Order was not being attacked, it was giving birth to its opposite. Relyan's obsession with control sharpened into a knife's edge. He doubled the patrols. He instituted new rules of conduct, dictating the acceptable emotional range for public expression. He spent his nights staring at the city's blueprints, trying to find the structural flaw, the hairline fracture in his logic that could allow for such art. The silent wanderer was still there, a constant peripheral presence. Sometimes Relyan would see him from his window, standing across the plaza, looking up at his tower. And for the first time, Relyan thought he saw the barest hint of a smile on the man's lips. It was a smile of profound, unsettling amusement. The whispers began then. They were not voices on the wind, but voices in the mind. A merchant would be counting his gold, and a thought, not his own, would slide into his consciousness. Each coin is a year of your life. You are counting your own death. A young Altmer mother, humming a lullaby to her child, would suddenly hear a venomous whisper from the cradle. I will betray you when I am old enough to hold a knife. Deepest fears, buried shames, unspoken resentments, they all began to bubble to the surface, given voice by an unseen narrator. The perfect silence of Velyn Harbor was broken by the internal cacophony of its citizens' own minds. Relyan was not immune. As he worked, a silken voice would murmur in his ear. Such a beautiful city, so clean, so fragile. One push is all it would take. He would see flaws where there were none. A cobblestone momentarily seeming to liquefy, the reflection in a window showing his face contorted in a manic grin. He started talking to himself, his arguments against the encroaching chaos growing louder, more desperate. The city, his perfect creation, was now a torture chamber of his own design. His attempts to enforce order only made the madness more pronounced. He commanded the citizens to ignore the whispers, which only made them listen more intently. He demanded public declarations of contentment, and the forced smiles of his people were more terrifying than any scream. Velyn Harbor was a city holding its breath, waiting for the final collective snap. It came on a night with no moon. The wanderer, who had been a silent fixture for months, walked to the center of the Grand Plaza. He tapped his simple oak staff on the flawless cobblestones once. A soft, resonant thump echoed through the city, and reality buckled. The silent scream of the wooden statue became audible, a soundless shriek that tore at the sanity of all who heard it. The buildings of Velyn Harbor began to warp and twist. Spires drooped like melting candles. Straight roads coiled into serpentine knots, and the stone faces of carved saints began to weep salt water that sizzled on the ground. Gravity became a suggestion, not a law. Citizens drifted upwards into the bleeding sky of the tapestry, laughing or crying, their bodies now puppets in a play without a script. The disciplined artisans and stoic merchants were transformed, their faces contorted into masks of ecstatic agony, and they began to dance, to sing nonsensical songs, to paint the pristine white walls with mud and blood in beautiful, horrifying murals of their own unraveling. It was not destruction. It was a carnival, a glorious, terrifying festival of absolute chaos, and its ringmaster stood in the center of it all, his beggar's rags melting away to reveal a suit of impossible clashing colors. The simple staff was now a conduit of pure, crackling madness. Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince, looked upon his work and laughed. It was a sound that was both the joy of a child with a new toy and the guttural satisfaction of a predator. High artisan Relyan stood on the balcony of his tower, watching his life's work, his very soul, become a surrealist nightmare. The logic, the order, the control, all of it was a lie. A fragile sheet of ice over an infinite, churning ocean of chaos. Yet as he watched a fish swim through the air and a pair of lovers merge into a weeping willow tree, he did not feel rage. He did not feel despair. His mind, stretched far beyond its breaking point, had found a new, terrifying clarity. He saw the artistry in it. The unpredictable, terrifying beauty of a pattern that was no pattern at all. He saw the ultimate expression of creative freedom, and he understood that his own rigid perfection was the true madness. He walked down from his tower, untouched by the joyful chaos around him. He strode through the plaza, past dancers with eyes on their hands and singers with liquid voices, and knelt before the grinning Daedric Prince. "Sheogorath, you are a god," Velyn said, his voice a dry rasp. Sheogorath cocked his head, his eyes a swirling vortex of purple and green. "I'm a work in progress, but I do have my moments. Did you like the show? I thought the bit with the gravity was a nice touch. Very uplifting." Velyn did not beg for his life. He did not curse the prince's name. He looked up, his eyes, the eyes of a master artisan who had found a new, incomprehensible medium, filled with a desperate, burning desire. This art," Velyn stammered. "Its complexity, its scope. I spent my life pursuing the art of the finite. You are the artist of the infinite. I was a fool." Sheogorath's smile widened. "Oh, a critic and a fan. Wonderful. Cheese for everyone." He clapped his hands, and a brief torrential rain of sweet rolls and cheese wedges fell upon the mad city. "Teach me," Velyn pleaded, tears streaming down his face. "Let me be your apprentice. Let me serve this perfect chaos. Take my soul, take my mind, remake me. I want to understand." Sheogorath stopped smiling. He looked at the kneeling Altmer, the architect of order, now begging for the sweet release of madness. The prince's expression became one of profound, ancient contemplation. He had come to break a toy, but the toy was asking to be shown how it was made. It was a new and fascinating development. "You wish to serve me?" the prince whispered, his voice suddenly cold and clear as glass. "To be a part of the art? Very well. An eternity of service in exchange for a single, perfect moment of understanding. A fair trade." Sheogorath touched Velyn's forehead with the tip of his staff. Velyn's body convulsed. His immaculate silver robes melted and reformed into gleaming golden armor, ornate and impossible. His skin hardened into a gilded shell. His face, once a mask of stern control, became a beautiful, impassive sculpture, its eyes glowing with a cold, internal light. He was no longer Velyn. He was a sentinel, a Daedric soldier, the first golden saint. And in his mind, Sheogorath granted his wish. He flooded the elf's consciousness with a perfect, crystalline understanding of infinity, a glimpse into the unfiltered chaos that churned at the heart of creation. It was a truth so vast, so beautiful, and so utterly maddening that Velyn's remade mind could do only one thing. It screamed. It was a silent internal scream of pure, unending, ecstatic horror, a scream that would never, ever stop. Resolution. When the sun rose the next morning over Valenwood, Velyn Harbor was gone. It had not been burned, nor flooded, nor reduced to rubble. In its place was a perfect circle of land, miles wide, shimmering with a faint prismatic light. The ground was smooth as glass, warm to the touch, and utterly silent. No birds sang near its edge, and the trees of the green seemed to lean away from it as if in fear. It was a beautiful, terrible scar on the world, a place where reality had been unwritten. And standing at the very center of that shimmering crater was a single golden-armored figure, motionless as a statue. It held a gleaming sword and stared into the horizon, a perfect sentinel guarding a perfect nothingness. For millennia, travelers would speak in hushed tones of the silent glade, a place where one could lose their mind just by staring too long into its depths. They spoke of the lone, golden knight who stood eternal vigil, never moving, never speaking. They did not know that they were looking at the last remnant of Velyn, the high artisan of Velyn Harbor. He had achieved his life's desire. He had become part of a perfect, unchanging design. His mind, trapped within its gilded cage of a body, was a prison of sublime absolute madness. He was Sheogorath's first masterpiece, a silent, screaming testament to the day a god of chaos discovered the true artistry of breaking not just a city, but a soul. And the lesson was learned, a lesson he would apply with joyful cruelty across the ages. The greatest madness is not born from chaos, but from the relentless, obsessive pursuit of perfect, beautiful, silent order.